Before we get started today, a quick disclaimer. If you are not interested in growing or improving as a writer, if you're content to just cruise along in your comfort zone, this is not the video for you. In case you're new around here, I'm Shannon Valenzuela. I'm an award-winning screenwriter. I'm a novelist, and I love helping other writers hone their craft and find their voice so they can share their stories with the world. If that sounds like you, and that sounds like the kind of thing you're interested in, then let's jump right in. Today, we're talking about failure. So the title of this video is Train Until Failure. And if you've spent any time around a gym at all, ever, you've probably heard this term. It's usually used by people who are working on building strength. I was over at the gym the other day, and it had been I've been away for a couple of weeks. I've been traveling. I've been this and that. And I went back and I was, doing my workout, and I was kind of reflecting, as I often do, because everywhere I look, I'm looking for, how can this help me to think better about what I do as a writer? How can this help me communicate better for all of us, how we can improve as writers, right? And so I was there at the gym and I was doing my workout, and I was thinking about this idea of train until failure and what it really means to actually push ourselves, right? I don't know about you, but so often when we show up to the gym, the tendency can be to take it a little bit easy on ourselves. I was talking to one of the trainers at the gym once, and she said that a lot of people that she sees, they come into the gym every day or every other day, and they do the exact same exercises with the exact same weight every single time they work out. So maybe they're running at the same pace, they're lifting the same amount of weight. And that's another way of saying that those people, which, tends to be a lot of us, I think, just coast along, staying completely in our comfort zone. This makes us feel great in the moment, right? You can lift that weight. You can run that pace. Like, that's why it's comfortable. We can walk away from that sometimes feeling pretty good about ourselves, right? We give ourselves a nice pat on the back. But the problem is that while that all feels really great in the moment, in the long run, that just keeps us stuck on a plateau, right? You're never actually moving the ball forward in terms of your endurance, your strength, or otherwise, right? The only way to do that is to change one of the variables. You either need to increase the number of reps if you're not increasing your weight. You need to increase the weight. If we're talking about running, you're going to have to change up your distance. Maybe you're running for a longer distance. Maybe it's the same pace. Maybe it's a slower pace, but a longer distance. Maybe it's a shorter distance, but a faster pace. You see what I'm saying? Like, we have to change a variable in order to challenge our bodies to do the thing and to grow and develop to that next level of strength or endurance or speed or whatever it is that we happen to be working on, flexibility, whatever it is, right? You can't actually make any progress if you never increase the load on your body, right? If you never encounter resistance, if you never encounter that point where you think, I don't think I can do this. I can't do this again, right? There's no way I can put in another rep. I cannot run another 100 feet. I'm done, right? I have nothing left in the tank. It's all gone. That's the place where we encounter the growth, okay? This is also, I think, one of the advantages, no matter what industry we're talking about, whether this is health and fitness or whether this is learning a new skill of any kind, whether that's writing or something else, working with a trainer or a coach or a teacher, being in a class of some kind is really, really helpful for this, because the truth of the matter is that we all like to cut ourselves a lot of slack, and we all underestimate our capacity for hard things, right? We don't really believe we can actually push ourselves. I just had this experience in my ballet class the other night. We have a spring recital that's coming up, and I was sort of on the fence about it. And the teacher came up and she asked me if I'm doing the recital. And I said, well, do you think I can do it? And she gave me 2 thumbs up with this huge smile. And I was like, okay, then I'm doing it. Now, as soon as we got into the actual choreography, I realized there are about 5 steps that I need to learn how to do in order to be able to actually execute this particular thing, but that's okay, right? I am going to be challenged by this, but she thinks I can do it, right? Her confidence in my ability, which I don't necessarily share 100% at this point, is going to have to be enough, right, to lead me to put in the work. Right? And that's also true of writing. We all tend to be the harshest critics of our own work, generally speaking. And we tend to downplay our actual abilities. We tend to say, that's something that's outside of my capacity. I can't do that. I'm not good enough to do that yet. But when you have someone who's in your corner who can say, no, actually, you really can. And if you can't yet, you will figure it out through the process of actually doing the project that you're afraid of, right? You're going to figure this out. Okay. So that comes back then to this idea about training until failure when we're talking about writing. What I'm interested in is this idea of upper limits, right? Of pushing ourselves until we fail. How do we find those upper limits? How do we shift those upper limits higher? Because that's the other beautiful thing that's going to happen, right? If we never find our upper limit, we're going to stay right in the middle of everything. We're going to just cruise along. We're never going to break through to that next level. It's impossible. There's a great saying, right? That what got you here will not get you there. What has worked for you in the past is not necessarily what is going to take you to the next level. There has to be a change in the variables. You have to change the variables. So what does all of this then have to do with writing? Okay, what does all of this have to do with writing? Writing is a craft as well as an art form, right? Writing is a craft, and that means that we get to improve our craft. We need to be constantly learning and growing and developing in our expression, in our productivity, and the kinds of projects that we're taking on. And generally speaking, the more we write, the more we improve our writing. Okay, writing is a skill and a craft. It is a skill that you need to practice in order to actually get better at it, right? You can't get better at a skill that you never actually practice. But I will say, just like my music teachers used to tell me growing up, that the right kind of practice is going to be the thing that's going to move the needle. If we're practicing the wrong things, or we're just doing the same thing over and over and over again, we're going to get the same results that we've always gotten, and we're never going to actually improve to that next level. So again, going back to my point about changing up the variables, that's what we're looking for. So what I want to do today is just explore a few of the areas where we truly might be sitting in our lane with the cruise control on, not really thinking about how to change those variables, how we can change lanes, shift into a higher gear, and start actually seeing some real results. First area that we can talk about, of course, is skill. Your skills as a writer. I absolutely love to talk about how we can grow and develop our skills as writers by challenging ourselves to do new things with the craft. My last video on 7 things you can write in 2 minutes is exactly something like this, right? It is giving you a challenge to change things up and force you to make faster creative decisions. Doing something in 2 minutes is a way of changing the variables. I had a producer and an executive the other day that I had lunch with him, and he challenged me. He said, you should do the 48-hour film project. You should totally do the 48-hour film project. And the reason why you should do something like that, right, is because it forces you to make faster creative decisions. You don't get to sit on a story for days and weeks and months, perhaps, mulling over how you're going to tell it, mulling over certain scenes, going back and rewriting the same pages over and over and over again, right? You just have to make decisions and get the thing finished, get it all the way through post-production, and just see what it is that you end up with. You have to make faster creative decisions. That is a way of challenging yourself to grow as a writer. If you find that one of the skills that you struggle with is making creative decisions quickly, this could be a way to do that, right? This is a way of changing the variables. It is a way of training until failure. And I want to say, by the way, right here and right now, that the way I'm talking and thinking about failure here is extremely positive, right? Without training until failure, without pushing ourselves until rejection, or until we have some kind of situation where we realize that we need to level something up, we're never going to know where those boundaries are. We're never going to understand what it is that we need to do to move ourselves into that next level. You almost have to to hit up against that wall a couple of times so that you can start to learn and adapt and then grow. And then you're able to actually do the thing that before it was a real challenge. So failure is absolutely to be understood as a positive thing. We want to do this. We want to hit that wall. The reason we want to hit the wall is because if we don't ever hit the wall, we don't ever know how we're going to improve, right? We never know where it is, where those areas are that we need to actually work on. Okay, so I just talked about improving the speed of our creative decisions. That is a definite skill. It's something that if you are hoping to be a working writer, you're going to have to do, right? We're going to have to make faster. I say we because this is a skill that I am definitely working on, right? We are going to have to learn how to make fast creative decisions, fast and good creative decisions, right? Ultimately, the goal is not just to increase the speed, but to increase the quality as well. Okay, so we're working those things in tandem. One of the best ways that I found in my own career to train until failure in this particular area, that is skill, is to get feedback on your work, right? To get feedback from trusted people who are going to give you really good quality notes. And by feedback, I also mean setting yourself up for hearing a whole lot of the answer no. And we need to learn along the way. Every time we get a no, if there's feedback that comes with that, we need to take that into consideration and evaluate that. If you're interested in more about how to handle constructive feedback, you can check out this video that I did a little bit earlier this year on rewriting like a pro. Okay, so what about networking? This is the skill, the number 2, where I think we need to work on, training until failure. Networking and building your community is a huge hurdle for a lot of writers, but I will tell you, right, and you probably know this, that growing your network and building your connections is one of the most powerful ways for you to advance your writing career. And so being aware that this might be a growth edge for you is the first step. And then the next step is to start setting yourself some smaller goals as you work to build your resiliency outside of your comfort zone. So maybe the next time you go to a writing conference, you set your goal to talk to at least one new person at every session you attend. If you find someone that you really enjoy talking to, try to set up a coffee or a lunch with them while you're at that conference. Okay. This is a skill that you truly do have to practice. But the good news is the more you practice, the easier it gets. So pitching is another one of those areas that we can really improve by testing our upper limits, right? The only way to get better at pitching is to pitch. And if you're not actively out there getting your work out there in front of people, finding opportunities to talk about what you're working on, you truly could be missing out on collaborations or ways that you can move your career forward. Getting good at pitching or pitch meetings involves developing actually a lot of different skills. So it really gives you an opportunity to test where your upper limits are on some of those skills. So there are different ways that you can pitch your work. You might see an opportunity, for example, to submit a written pitch. A written pitch is a very short 1 to 2 page document that details the major points about your story. And it needs to be a compelling and persuasive piece of work, right? You need to catch people's attention immediately. And you need to be able to tell them why this story is going to be so compelling. And you need to be clear. Honing that ability to concisely and compellingly tell your story in a short written document is going to be really, really important. But there's a set of skills that are involved in that just take a lot of practice. The other option is doing a pitch in person. So this might be at a writing conference. This might be something that you sign up for a pitch fest, or you sign up to do a live pitch with a development executive or an agent or someone who can help you move your career forward. And that, again, is a whole other set of skills. You're still, in a sense, leveraging that ability to tell your story in a short and compelling and concise way. But now you're adding in the dynamics of an in-person encounter, right? So that's a whole other set of skills that you might want to practice. When I first started pitching out some of my work, I really, really struggled on the written pitch with being able to concisely and compellingly tell the story. I wanted to include too many details. It got really muddy. I wasn't able to clearly communicate the story arc. It was something that I really, really had to practice. I crashed and burned on so many of my written pitches when I first started practicing this, because I didn't really understand the dynamics of how to put that together in a way that made sense. And it wasn't until I really started focusing on studying pitches and how to put one together and really practice that those results started to improve and I started to get a little bit more traction and attention. Same thing with live pitching, right? Same exact thing. When I first started doing live pitches, I didn't feel very comfortable. I didn't feel very confident. I was afraid of all kinds of different things, right? And I had trouble figuring out how to make the connection with the story, with the other person, right? How to tell a personal story, like why me? That's one of the key things about doing a pitch is communicating why me, right? Why am I the one that's telling this story? Why was I drawn to tell this story? And I really struggled with how to make that human connection during a pitch session. But I've been practicing it for a long time. And on a whim, when I went to a writing conference, there were some agents that were there. And I thought, I'm going to give this a try because I wanted the feedback. I wanted to see how it would land. I went in and I did the pitch and she said, you're really good at pitching. And that is the moment where I realized that all of that time that I have spent practicing doing these live pitches with development executives and with other people, then it has actually improved, right? I have actually grown in that ability to pitch, but it's only been because I've been focusing on putting in the work. And I had to hit that upper limit repeatedly until I was able to master those skills that went into doing this better. And now I feel very confident going into a pitch meeting. So if you want to work on pitching, set yourself a goal perhaps of signing up to do a pitch, maybe one live pitch, one written pitch per month. You can find places where you can sign up to do pitch fests, things like that. If you're going to a writing conference, sign up to pitch your work to an agent. Do your homework, make sure they would be a good fit, and then just give them the opportunity to give you some feedback on what landed for them and what didn't. That's how you're going to know how to refine what you want to present to your, the next person that you talk to about your work. And also, you never know when you're going to be in an elevator somewhere, right? This is the classic story. You never know when you're going to run into somebody at a coffee shop or be in an elevator with somebody or run into somebody or have a lunch with somebody. And they might say, hey, I heard you were a writer. Like, what are you working on? You need to be able to communicate very concisely and enthusiastically what it is that you're working on, because you never know what doors are going to open if you're able to do that in a compelling way. Okay, you just always need to be prepared. I always say it's kind of like getting ready or setting yourself up for serendipity, right? It's making sure that you have the skills in place when that amazing moment lands on your front door, right? You are able to step through that doorway and you're able to greet it and you're able to be ready for it. So pitching is a great skill to work on. I will tie this off here with a little bit of a note about practicing or testing or finding your upper limits on productivity. The ability to bring a level of focus and intentionality to the work is really, really important. And it, I think, can be trained and it can be nourished and nurtured. And it takes practice and it takes you discovering, I can go, 20 minutes solid. And then I start to find that I'm wandering. I'm thinking that I need to go research something really quick. And then I get sucked down a rabbit hole in the research side, or I start to run up into a story problem and I'm not sure how to solve it. And so I start to gravitate towards my phone and maybe I'm just going to check on what's on social media and who's doing what. And maybe I'll get inspired. And that is such a trap, by the way. Don't do that. Find where your upper limits are in terms of your ability to focus for a sustained amount of time. Test different environments, right? Test different environments. Like I find for me, sometimes if I really need to focus, I have to leave my house. I can't sit in my home office. I need to go to a coffee shop or I need to go somewhere where the only thing I'm bringing with me is the work. And I don't get on the Wi-Fi, right? At the coffee shop or wherever I am. And I put my phone to the side. If this is something that you actually recognize, like this is becoming an issue for you and it's holding you back from doing what you want to do with your writing career, then I encourage you to find ways to test where your upper limits are and then gradually work on expanding those. So wrapping this all up now, Finding and testing our upper limits. That is training to the point of failure, right? Finding and testing where our upper limits are allows us to transcend those limits. It allows us to train ourselves and to push ourselves outside of our comfort zone so that we can achieve more than we ever thought possible. All of those writing goals and dreams that you have are on the other side of something that is making you uncomfortable. I promise you. Finding those areas where we're not confident or where we're experiencing a lot of rejection, taking all of that feedback, that is a good thing, showing us the door to that next level of our writing career. It doesn't feel good in the moment, just like a hard workout often doesn't really feel good in the moment. It feels great afterwards. And it feels even better when the thing that you used to think was impossible isn't anymore. I remember seeing in a gym once that said, someday your workout will be your warm-up. And that's entirely and exactly the point, right? That is how much stronger, how much better you are going to get as a writer. So I hope that this week you find something that you are struggling with and a way to push yourself outside of your comfort zone and challenge yourself. Identify those areas where you're feeling challenged and figure out a plan for testing those limits until you surpass those limits. So don't forget to hit that like button. Let me know if you found this helpful. Your feedback truly so important to me as I work to create and craft content that's going to help you in your writing journey. So please let me know what your big takeaway was this week, what you're going to try. I would love to hear how it goes, right? Keep us posted. Let us know how it goes. And don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss any updates. See you next time.